It is not simply about stopping to think about a person. It is a complex process that requires deep awareness, work on oneself, and, most importantly, courage. After all, attachment is not only about love or dependence on another person, but also about our own inner emptiness, fears, and expectations that we unconsciously place on relationships. When someone becomes the center of our world, it is not so much about them as it is about what we ourselves lack inside. Have you ever wondered why it is so difficult to let go? The issue is not only in memories or feelings, but also in the fact that this person, whatever they were like, filled a void at some point, a void that you may not have even suspected. They became a symbol of your need for love, recognition, and acceptance. When the moment of farewell comes, a fear deep down whispers, "What if I never find anything like it again?" Or even deeper, "What if I am not complete without them?" But the truth is that you are already complete. You do not need someone to fill you because you yourself are an entire universe. It is precisely this fact that makes the process of letting go so difficult, because it is not only about saying goodbye to a person, but also about the necessity to look inside yourself and ask, what do I really lack? What was I trying to find in him or her that I could not find in myself? Our emotional dependence on another person is not about them. It is about us, about the wounds we carry, about the fears we do not want to admit, about the love for ourselves that we have not learned to give ourselves. Therefore, true letting go is not simply distance, it is deep inner work. What should you do to truly let go? First, stop romanticizing the past. Our brain loves to play tricks on us, embellishing memories and leaving only the best. But the reality was different. If this connection brought you pain, look at the situation honestly, without illusions. Second, begin to fill yourself from within. The feelings that you sought in another person, such as love, recognition, and warmth, you can give to yourself. Yes, it is difficult, but it is the path to inner freedom. Third, accept that the breakup is not an end, but a liberation from which you are no longer dependent on someone, but are building your life consciously and freely. Emotional dependence is invisible chains that we often forge ourselves, even without realizing it. We attribute to another person the power to make us happy, to fill our days with meaning, and to give us a sense of completeness. But therein lies the trap. When we make someone the center of our universe, we give them control over our emotions, our state, and even our self-perception. Why is it so difficult to let go? Because we become attached not only to the person, but also to the idea of them. We hold on to hope, onto an illusion, onto an image created in our minds that may have never corresponded to reality. Most often, we do not realize that we love not so much the person as the role they play in our lives, or what they symbolize for us. Perhaps they became for us the embodiment of love, acceptance, safety, or even self-confidence. And when we face the need to let go, it seems to us that we are losing not only the person, but also all the feelings that they evoked in us. But the truth is that the feelings were always inside us. We simply have not learned to find them in ourselves. We have become accustomed to seeking confirmation of our worth from the outside, believing that love and happiness should come to us from someone else. But we truly become free when we realize that we do not need another person to be happy. We are capable of creating this happiness within ourselves. Letting go is not forgetting. It is recognizing that a certain stage of your life is complete, and now it is time to move on. It is realizing that you have everything you need to be whole, and no one else can fill the void inside you, except yourself. It is important to ask yourself questions. What am I looking for in this person? Why do I think that I cannot find it in myself? What am I afraid of if I let go of this attachment? The answers may not be comfortable, but they are the key to inner liberation. The process of letting go can be painful, but it is also incredibly transformative. It is the moment when you take your power back, when you no longer allow another person to define your worth, your mood, and your future. It is the moment when you choose yourself. And if it seems to you that it is impossible, just take the first step. Stop seeking confirmation of your significance in another person. Begin to look inside yourself, to fill your life with what brings you joy, regardless of external circumstances. The more you strengthen yourself from within, the less you need to cling to someone from the outside. Letting go means recognizing that you are valuable enough on your own. It means allowing yourself to live without fear, without expectations, without dependencies. It means being free. There are numerous factors that can intensify emotional attachment and even turn it into a difficult-to-release dependency. One such factor is the idealization of the other person. When we are emotionally attached, we tend to see our partner in an exclusively positive light, often closing our eyes to their shortcomings and exaggerating their virtues. Idealizing our partner imprints an image in our minds so strongly that letting go becomes unbearable. We convince ourselves that the person is unique, that there is no second like them, which only fuels our dependence on them. An idealized perception turns reality into an illusion, and the relationship into an illusory refuge. But in addition to idealization, there are other, deeper reasons why we become attached. For example, experiences of loss and disappointment in the past influence how we build our relationships in the future. People who have experienced loss may subconsciously strive for more intense and strong connections, trying in this way to protect themselves from the pain they experienced earlier. Every person who has ever left our lives can leave a deep emotional wound, and unconsciously, we seek those who can fill this empty space. The emptiness becomes a stumbling block, making us cling to what promises to be reliable, stable, and most importantly, not to disappear. It is the need for security that often leads to the creation of emotional dependence. There is another interesting detail related to our attachments: established patterns, certain scenarios on the basis of which we build our relationships. If in the past love for us was associated with sacrifice, suffering, or insecurity, then we will unconsciously gravitate towards such relationships, even if they cause us pain. We are so used to feeling love through the prism of difficulties that we do not even notice how we are drawn into a vicious cycle. It is like a self-defense mechanism that we repeat over and over, trying to find in relationships not only love, but also confirmation of our own beliefs, despite the fact that they may be destructive. Changing such patterns is not easy, but recognizing them is already the first step towards inner freedom. Another important aspect is our need for approval. We often find ourselves dependent on another person in order to feel valuable and worthy of love. This is a kind of inner mechanism when we seek external confirmation of our worth. Every gesture, every word of someone dear to us strengthens our self-esteem. However, when this approval becomes a need, we feel that without it, we lose our identity, that without this person, we are no longer ourselves. And at this moment, attachment goes beyond the natural feeling of love, turning into a strong dependence on the one who grants us these confirmations. One should not forget about the power of shared experiences that bind people on a deep level. Someone who has been there in important moments of our lives becomes a part of us, our memories, and history. Such people are not simply important. They become symbols of what is connected with them, a sense of security, love, and belonging. When we lose these people, we feel that we are losing not only them, but also a part of our own history. Letting go of such people seems akin to losing a part of oneself. Understanding all these factors can help us become more aware in our relationships and attachments. It provides a new perspective on the situation. It allows us to see that in reality, we are attached not only to the person, but also to what they represent in our lives: security, love, identity. And when we begin to realize these mechanisms, we have a chance to free ourselves from dependence and build healthier relationships with ourselves. Emotional detachment does not mean stopping love or losing the value of someone. In reality, it is a process in which we learn to restore our inner power, realizing that everything we search for in other human being we can find in ourselves. This is not a simple path, and it looks like sometimes it's impossible or too painful. However, in reality, detaching is a much more deep process than simply letting go of a person. So as to actually step aside, we have to know what keeps us inside. What kind of attachments and projects create those strong connections? And the most important part, what do we search for in another human being? What makes them that difficult to overcome for us? In the process of realization of the so-called hidden psychology, this notion has to do with the fact that emotional detaching is not simply stopping the communication or cutting down the time spent with a person. However, it is more about deep work on ourselves. We should review our emotional patterns, reveal those hidden wounds and feelings we ignored for a long time. The first step is to recognize our projects in many connections, especially those where we experience strong emotional addiction. We often unknowingly project a need for safety, the need for protection we are lacking, or a strive to external approval. When we project those elements on the other, we stop seeing their actual personality, and we start experiencing it as the only source of satisfaction of our internal needs. Recognizing those projections allows us to see that the addiction is often built not to the human, but to what that human represents for us. If we ask ourselves what exactly we are searching for another human being, we stumble upon another important topic with the destruction of idealization. We tend to idealize the humans we hold dear, assuming they have the properties we cannot find in others. This idealization creates an insurmountable addiction, making us believe that a person is irreplaceable. But in reality, idealization is an illusion. It is a projection of our desired properties created by our consciousness, so as to break down those illusions. We should recognize the person is not a magic being capable of solving our problems. He is just a human with his strong and weak sides. When we learn to see others like they are, we free ourselves from the disruption of reality, and we realize that our emotional independence is not dependent from them. Another step in the detaching process is to restore the connection with itself. We often forget about it when we are addicted. We easily forget our own identity, and we start defining ourselves with the other human being. We become so dependent on the connections that we lose understanding on who we truly are. Detaching in that context becomes a process of getting back to ourselves. We newly start realizing that our happiness and inner calmness are not dependent on external factors, but it comes from within. It is important to do what gives us joy, to restore those old hobbies or start new activities. It helps us to newly get the meaning in our own lives, reminding us that our value is not dependent on who is beside us. However, in that path of detaching, it is important to not forget compassion to ourselves. This process is not easy, and it always goes with pain, sadness, and doubts. We can feel guilt that we did not let the person go before, or disappointment about ourselves because of dependence from the other. It is important to understand that detaching is not a momentive process. It is a gradual way, and we allow ourselves to experience emotions without judgment, one of the key aspects of self-compassion that allows us to move forward without rush, with respect to ourselves and to the process we are going through. Detaching is not a fight with feelings. It's accepting them, understanding that every step in that path is valuable and necessary for our growth. Emotional detaching is not a simply process of getting rid of attachments. It is a true school for our internal world. It includes an important lesson to learn to find calmness in being alone. For many people, that idea is scary because being alone is known as an emptiness. But in reality, being alone is not something scary. It is a possibility for our self-loading without external factors and other humans. When we learn to be harmonic with ourselves, when we experience peace in being alone, we truly start becoming emotionally independent, recognizing being alone as a way to strengthen yourself. It does not come soon. However, step by step, it becomes not just possible, it is necessary for the progress. Sometimes we need to let go of someone's shape to get back our freedom and a possibility to truly understand ourselves. This is not a loss, but opposite, it's an acquisition. When we stop searching ourselves in other human being, projecting on them our uncompleted needs, and we learn to idealize the relationship with ourselves, detaching starts getting a totally new meaning in it. There is no loss, just a new perspective on itself and what we can build healthy and authentic relationships. The key moment in the path to detaching is realizing that addiction to another human often builds on our unfinished internal needs. We are searching in them what we are lacking. We project a strive for safety, love, or recognition so as to realize what we truly need. It is useful to start a process of self-reflection. One of the most powerful methods for that is reflective writing. Write about your feelings and thoughts about that person you want to emotionally detach. What are you truly searching for in that connection? Is that love or a need for something more? Writing helps us to see what kind of patterns we are replaying and shows that we often search in others to fill the emptiness inside itself. It is the first step to get free of the addiction and to the progress of consciousness in our connections. Then, strengthening your emotional independence becomes the main step in the path to self-determination. It is not refusing from others' influences. It's learning to truly live, to enjoy life without external stimuli. Open for yourself hobbies, activities that will boost your self-esteem and will help you to become a more purposeful human. The self-progress, attention to the physical and emotional state, for example, by sports or meditation. It makes us to get to feel satisfaction, not depending on another human. In that process, it becomes clear that our life is full of meaning and value, and it does not need to depend on other. Emotional detaching is not simply a process of freeing from painful attachments. It is a path to deep self-knowing and internal freedom. It requires from us not only courage, but patience. The process of detaching can be hard, however, every step drives us to a more harmonic and independent life. It is not always a cozy path, however. It is always worth it to go through it. The key aspect of that process is to use different methods of self-knowing that can help us to understand what actually hides behind our emotions, beside reflective writing that helps us to realize our feelings and experiencing. There are many other methods that can be strong tools in the path to emotional independence. One of those methods is the analysis of dreams. Dreams are a mirror of our unconsciousness in what is often hidden emotions and experiences that we do not realize in our daily life. Writing our dreams and analyzing them, we can discover which unspoken feelings or attachments affect our connections and attract us to them. Dreams can become a key to understand deep emotional patterns that we do, and to notice. Analyzing dreams, we open for ourselves hidden angles of our spirit, allowing ourselves to see what actually lays at the base of addiction. If that's unsafeness, fear, or a need for safety. A useful tool is visualization. That practice allows us to imagine how our lives would look like if we have got freedom from emotional addiction. Imagine ourselves in a situation where we totally let go of that attachment. We start seeing that our lives can be full and fulfilled even without those emotions that earlier seemed like essential. Visualization helps us to strengthen our trust that we are capable to be happy and fulfilled without being dependent from another human, and that emotional balance is not necessarily bound to someone's presence in our lives. However, emotional detaching is not a momentous solution. That is a hard process that demands the progress of compassion for ourselves. Because in that way we're going to meet with disappointments, doubts, and pain. Often we feel that we don't move enough quick, that we cannot let go of a human or situation, and that makes feelings of guilt or doubt. But it is important to remember that that process is unique for all of us. There is not the right time or an accurate schedule, as there is not an ideal way. It is important to learn to be gentle with ourselves, to accept our feelings, and allow ourselves to be wrong. Every step, every moment when we realize that addiction starts losing his power, is valuable practices of self-compassion, like meditation, aware breathing, or simply realizing our emotions without judgment, allows us to move forward with respect. And to our process, it reminds us that detaching is not an act of strictness or rejecting, that is a way to a more deep and healthy way to ourselves. Another important composing on the path to emotional independence is the establishment of healthy borders. Without them, we can drown in emotions that make us vulnerable and tiring. Establishment of sharp borders with that human we want to detach can become an important step that can be the cutting down of time of communication or shrinking time we spend on thinking about the human. Those borders give us the place for healing and self-perfecting, and even if the contact does not disappear totally, they help us to restore the balance and reduce the emotional dependence. Nonetheless, a very important step is the practice of gratitude. Too often our addiction happens because we focus on expectations related to the future, and those thoughts feed our attachment. Gratitude for what we have right now help us to get back in the moment and realize that our lives is full of sense and values, even without attaching to that human or event that cannot exist in the future. Practicing gratitude, we get back to the reality and we stop searching satisfaction in the outside world, and we start valuating what we already have. Examples of actual humans that pass throughout the process of emotional detaching can be an inspiration for us. Once in his romantic relationships, he realized that his fear of loss and insecurities were not about his partner. They were about himself. He started keeping a journal and understood that his addiction was not just love. It was a deep need of approval. That realization became the key to change his attitude to himself and to his connections. Another human that was haunted about an idealization of a past partner started practicing visualization. Imagined that his life is full of new possibilities and self-realization. In the end, he felt how he sets himself free from the chains of memories. Today, we're not simply talking about detaching. We're opening for ourselves his unbelievable power as the path to get back to yourselves. Detaching is not an act of rejection of love or going in an emotional emptiness. It's a brave decision of setting ourselves up, freeing up internal space and wellness, realizing that despite the importance of another human in your lives, your true essence and internal world are your responsibilities, and they cannot depend on external factors. Imagine what it can mean for you to get back the control on your internal state, to feel that it's full and it is not overshadowed by another human being. What the detaching is, it's not an escape in being alone. It's a creation of space for progress, new opportunities, and strengthening the most important connections, those we have with ourselves. That process can be compared with the setting free of mind and heart from old emotions that do not serve us anymore. That's an invite to freedom. But not a freedom to be alone. That is the freedom to consciously choose with who you want to share your lives without a feeling of addiction or a trap. And probably the most important thing is that is a way to say, I evaluate what it was, but I am ready to move forward and build something new. Every step you are doing to the side of the detaching, that is a gesture of affirmation that you have all needed resources to be happy and fulfilled. Independently from this moment, if you feel that the time of letting go is now, do this step. Sometimes it will be hard. Sometimes it may seem that the power is leaving you, but trust that inside you is hitting a huge capacity for transformation and healing. The cut that gradually heals. The process of detaching also brings its healing. You're not losing someone, you're giving yourself back your power, your independence. Freedom from others' expectations, from old love, and from everything that constrains your progress. That is not simply freedom. That is the right to be happy. That is a chance to have peace inside us and in the connections with others. That's not a farewell to feelings. A meeting with the most authentic version of yourself. That's a process in which you find out that true freedom starts inside you. And if you're now at a crossroad where you need to do that first step, don't be afraid to admit that letting go means not losing. It means finding yourself. The life is full of emotional wellness. It is available for you. This is not the end. That is the beginning of a new chapter where you become the author of your happiness. And remember that every step on the way to emotional freedom has value. If this message touched you, don't hesitate to share it, because possibly it is precisely today when someone needs to hear that. Letting go is not a loss, is a path to restore power and joy.